So I want to thank you too for coming out. I know you both keep incredibly busy and hectic schedules, and quite frankly, I believe it's a privilege to have audience with you two today. I have nothing but respect and regard, and I could throw on a million accolades, and we'd be on here for 30 minutes. So I'm going to defer to you to tell the audience about yourselves, but I will give a little bit of context here on what motivated me and inspired me to do this. And that was, I really wanted to take time to dispel a lot of the myths, I think, innuendos that are associated with the direct selling industry. The podcast shall remain nameless, but I remember listening to a podcast recently where somebody really dragged the industry, and nothing that the gentleman was saying was consistent with my experience has been, right? And so because of that, I said, let me pull together the brightest and the best, the cream of the crop, the tip of the top, right, as they say, and have a real conversation about what people should expect if they decide to take this on as a career or side hustle or whatever they need it to be for themselves. So with that being said, I'm going to start with I have a hard time calling you OG, man, because I don't know what you've been drinking or consuming all your life, but you look 20. I mean, you looking like your peers, man. Sometimes, Mr. Peter, particularly when you cut off those gray hairs.
This is my disguise, man. It's my disguise.
Yes, indeed.
I'm tired of being the millennial movement. I used to say Carol and I would always say we were the original millennial movement before the millennial movement came in and dropped a bomb on Legal Shield. So I'm sorry, was that your introduction? Are you going out to me, sir?
I'm going out to you. If you don't mind, share a little bit about your background. Why did you gravitate towards the industry, or why did the industry find you?
All right. Well, I'm gonna start with I was born an old poor black child. Just joking, but not far from it. I mean, yes, obviously I'm black, but I grew up in South Central LA, which is what most people what it's referred to nowadays. When I grew up there, I was raised by a single mom. My mom, we grew up in when we were living there, it was called the Jungle. It's still the Jungle. They just call it South Central LA because it's there in Southern California because I think it just sounds nicer, but it's still the Jungle.
Mm.
But anyway, I grew up. I would like to say I grew up po. We weren't poor. We couldn't afford the other OR, so I grew up po.
Mm.
And my mom, she's a single mom. She worked during the day. She went to school at night to get her a degree so she could better herself and better our families and our lifestyle. So we didn't have much. And my mom, she did everything she could to provide for our needs. But when it came to wants, she said, anything you want, you got to go out there and get it yourself. So I was used to that. I mean, I used to just go do what I had to go do what I had to do to make money. I would catch the bus places and I do whatever I had to do. My mom moved us out of South Central LA to another part of east of Los Angeles called the San Gabriel Valley. Whole kind of night and day in terms of environment. And so it's a whole different school, different area, and different center of influence. I had different influences, different people, different thoughts, different everything. Worked hard, went to school. I couldn't wait to get a job because I knew I could have more money that way, that I could buy the things I wanted. Got a job, didn't want to do fast food like most people. And but I ended up having to do it because that's really the only thing you can do if you don't have any skills and you're young. So I got a fast food job at a mall actually, and within a couple of weeks I realized this is not what I want to do. I don't like being hot and smell like grease and all this stuff. So one of my lunch breaks, we went walking through the mall, on my lunch break, and I remember seeing all these little stores. And people just sitting back in these little shops on a stool, behind a cash register, not and just getting paid. I thought, man, I want a job like that. So um, the next time I went on my break, the next day, I think it was, went to the mall. I wasn't even looking at the what store it was, what the sign was. I was just looking in the windows looking for a help wanted sign. And sure enough, I stumbled across the shop. It had a help wanted sign in the window. Uh, Went in and got an application, came back, filled out the application, came back, had my shirt and tie on, gave it to the manager, and she interviewed me right on the spot and hired me right on the spot. It was a company called Wallpapers to Go. Uh, at least they were Southern California. I think they were a national company, but they're a wallpaper store. And growing up in South Central, I didn't know anything about wallpaper. Nobody in my family had wallpaper. Are you kidding me? And but I got there and they trained us on how to hang wallpaper. They sent us to what they call color school. So I learned how to match colors and learned everything you can learn about wallpaper because they want us to be very knowledgeable when customers came in. We can answer questions and all that stuff. Put up displays and all kind of stuff. So I was pretty good at it. And then I noticed as I was working there for several months that every now and then, well, people were always asking for a recommendation for a wallpaper hanger, a professional wallpaper hanger. And then these guys, these professional paper hangers would come in and they would give us a box of business cards. And we already had some under their counter and they'd come replenish them. And so whenever someone would ask for a paper hanger, we'd give them 3 or 4 of these cards, these different paper hangers. We don't say we don't know anything about them, we're not associated with them, but here's some professional paper hangers. So after working there for a while, I said, you know what? I'm pretty good at hanging wallpaper. I've done all these displays. I've even hung some paper in my mom's bathroom. I said, I know what I'm doing. So I actually went to the shoe store. I went to Staples and I got, I think, 500 business cards for $9.99, $10, something like that. And of course, there was no cell phone back then, so I put my name, my mom's home phone number on there, and I was about, I think, paper hanger, wallpaper hanger, something like that. And I stuck my little box of cards right on top of the other 5 or 6 boxes of cards. And so whenever a customer would I'd help a customer, they'd ask for a referral, I'd give them the professional paper hangers cards, and I'd say, hey, here these guys are professionals. So I do wallpaper too. I said, I just started hanging wallpaper on the side. Here's my card as well. I'd love to give you an estimate. And most people said, okay. And then I'm 16. They don't want a little 16-year-old coming in there messing up their house. But a couple people said, sure, come on by and give me an estimate. And so I'll never forget my very first job. I don't know how much detail you want here, Mr. Buford, but my very first job was a bathroom that took 8 rolls of wallpaper to hang. Now, I don't know if you guys know anything about wallpaper, but when you buy a roll of wallpaper, it's a double roll. But I didn't know that until I started working there. But you think that's just a roll up. Actually, it is one continuous roll of wallpaper, but they consider it in the industry a double roll. So the person needs 8 rolls, you're buying 4 bulk bundles of a roll. Anyway, it doesn't matter. The point is that a bathroom is a small place, should be simple to, but you got all the shower and windows and the mirrors and the toilet. So it's a very difficult thing because you got a lot of cutting and matching you have to do. So here's my point. This is what I learned. This is my first experience in business. I said, I'm going to undercut the competition. I said, these guys are charging 25. I know I brought up the double roll to mention the fact that even though you buy a double roll wallpaper, professional wallpaper hangers, they charge you by the roll. So they charge $25 a single roll to hang a roll of wallpaper. So you might buy a bundle of wallpaper for $20, $30, but you're going to pay $50 for the professional hanger to hang it for you. And anyway, so I thought, I don't, $25. I could do it for $5 a roll. So I quoted this lady. I said, you're gonna need 8 rolls for this bathroom. And I charge $5 a roll to hang it. I can do it for $40. Not even thinking. I said, oh, $40, that's great. So she says, done, sold. The next Saturday, I went over to her house. I spent 8 hours in this bathroom hanging this wallpaper, sweating like a pig, and I'm all done. And you know what she gave me? $40. And I thought, you big dummy. I said, you were at that time, I think the minimum wage was $3.35 an hour. And I'd actually gotten a raise, believe it or not, guys. I got a raise, my first raise after being there for 90 days. I got a nickel raise. I was up to 3.40 an hour. So I said to myself, I could be sitting in the shop, at an air conditioned shop on a Saturday, working the weekend for 8 hours and make almost the same amount of money instead of being here hot and sweaty and a mess. And anyway, so I learned that just because you can doesn't mean you should try to undercut I didn't feel justified trying to charge $25 a roll because obviously I wasn't a professional. I hadn't done much. But I learned that you can't just try to undercut it at $5 a roll. So I actually took my raise to $15 a single roll and started making money. Bought my first car, helped my mom out with the bills and stuff like that. So I'll say that was my first business. And instead of, going to games and partying like all my friends did, I would spend my weekends hanging out someone's bathroom or their living room, their dining room or something like that, making money. And so that's how I provided for the things that I wanted and also helped my mom on the side too when she needed money for help with bills and stuff like that. So that was my first foray into business. I would say I learned a lot starting that business at 16. And then how did I get into where I am today? I went to college not because I wanted to, because I had to. I'm the baby of 6 kids, and none of my older siblings decided to go to college. Actually, a couple of them tried to go to college, came home on winter break, came home on spring break. My sisters ended up getting pregnant, so they didn't go back. My brother went in the army. My other brother went in food service. So, long story short, my mom's like, "Look, I worked too hard. Someone in this family, one of y'all are going to college, and you're the last one, so you have to go because nobody else went to college." So I always knew business was my way out. I'd be growing up poor in South Central LA. I knew that in order to make money, at first, I know intuitively, I knew that entrepreneurship was the way. So I went to college not because I wanted to, and because I was an entrepreneur and I felt college was a complete waste of my time, I didn't go to class. And ended up on a second academic probation. Found out that there was no such thing as a third academic probation. They sent me a letter saying, "Hey, you know what? You had too much fun here. You can't come back." So I was working part time at a little independent insurance agency for a guy just running errands for him. When a lady walked off the street and said she had a service that all of our insurance clients could use, I quickly told her they weren't my clients. I was just a college student working there part time, and she should come back and talk to my boss when he gets back from his lunch break. And she immediately turned that lemon into lemonade and said, "You know what? I'm looking for college students like yourself who might be interested in making some extra money, doing something that won't interfere with your college schedule." Of course, I don't really have a college schedule, but I said, "Hey, Miss, you make some money. What is this?" So she began to explain this company and this concept called prepaid legal services to me. And I'm 21 years old. Again, I didn't need an attorney. Nobody in my family could afford an attorney. And I knew they were expensive. That's all I knew. You know, closest I've been to an attorney is Matlock or LA Law, or something like that on TV. But the concept made sense. I thought, because again, I watched my mom, my single mom, get ripped off, taken advantage of, mistreated, talked over, talked about my whole life growing up. And I thought, man, she could use something like this. She could use someone looking out after her. My mom was the only child, so she never had a big brother or a big sister, anyone take to look out after her. But I knew that she needed this service. I knew she could afford it because back then it was only $16 a month. And I thought, I know she can afford it. I know she needs it. I said, so how do you make money? And she says, well, wait, I don't have one here on my desk. She says, could you ask your mom to listen to this cassette tape? I'm like, this little audio cassette tape. This is 30 years ago. I said, absolutely. And she says, what we found is this, there's a 50-minute presentation on this audio cassette tape. And most people, when they listen to it, will decide to enroll and become a Legal Shield member, a customer. I said, well, I could do that. So I got involved, paid my associate fee, got involved. First person calls mom. I said, Mom, I ran across something I think you might need. That was my whole sales pitch. It wasn't even sales. It was just exactly how I felt. I felt she needed it. And of course, she says, what is it, honey? I said, I can't explain it to you. I said, but I got this cassette tape, this little brochure, and this application. So I'm going to send it to you. Listen to the tape. If you like it, fill out the application, send it back to you with a check for $16. Of course, like a good mom, she did that. Listened to the tape, sent the application back to me with a check. I signed the application, put it in the mail to the company, and just like that young lady told me, a few days later, the company sent me a check for telling my mother about something I was going to tell her about for free. And after
Wow.
that, it was all over. I just couldn't believe this company was going to be crazy enough to pay me to tell my friends and family and people that I cared about this service that I thought they needed. So I got a few more of those cassette tapes. And I began to share them with everyone I knew, everyone I cared about, even people I met for the first time. In my first year, I made $7,700 slinging tapes. And then, in fact, I wasn't making that kind of money working for that insurance agency. So I quit my job, went full time, which my wife wasn't too happy about, but sometimes you have to do what you got to do. And then went to work the next year, talked to more people, doing the same thing, ran across something. I said the exact same thing to everyone that I said to my mom because I figured it worked. I don't want to mess it up. I ran across something I think you might need, and most people said, "What is it?" I said, "I can't explain it to you, but listen to the tape. If you like it, let me know. I'll get you signed up." My second year, I made double my income, about $15,000. Talked to more people. That's how I made more money. And then my mentors at the time said, "Hey, Russell, you're doing pretty good." I was making about $1,500 a month, $1,200, $1,500 a month. They said, "Could you teach a few other people how to do what you're doing?" I'm like, "Yeah, it's not that hard. I'm just asking people to listen to this cassette tape." And they said, well, "Do you know if you can teach other people how to do what you're doing, you can actually build a team and earn an override off all the members that they enroll?" Now, guys, I had never even heard of a concept like that. This idea of, I mean, I thought I was pretty smart. You know, I knew the idea that every time I sign somebody, I get paid. But the idea that I could enroll, I could bring you on board, Mr. Buford. You could bring on Mr. Pillay, and Mr. Pillay could bring on someone, and then that person could enroll a member, and I get paid. I thought that was I just didn't, I thought that was the most amazing concept I'd ever heard. The idea of getting paid off the efforts of others. Now, I worked at insurance agency. My boss, I saw him, I kind of had a little glimpse of it because he was a kind of one-man shop, but he did have agents. They just all worked from home. They were outside agents. They would just bring all their applications in every week. I'd process them for my boss. He'd sign them and send them off to the insurance company. So I knew that he wasn't. I never saw him sell. I worked for him for 2 years. I never saw him sell insurance, but I knew he made money off the efforts of the guys. So I actually had been exposed to the concept, but didn't really know what it was until I put the pieces together when I found out what I could do here at Legal Shield. So long story short, I went back to everyone that I had enrolled as a member and said, "Hey, do you know someone who can benefit from the service?" Of course, they all said, "Yeah, I do." So then I started recruiting all those folks. I said, "Hey, all you got to do is do what I did. Just ask them to listen to this cassette tape." Our third year with the company, our income doubled again. But the unique part about it is we did less work the third year than we did the first 2 years combined, and our income still doubled because of the leverage concept. And then as we begin to continue to learn more and train our team and help them recruit more, and it just took off. The next year, our income tripled over $100,000. The next year, it tripled again over $300,000. And then our best year in legal show has been somewhere around $427,631.15. And but you just continue to learn and grow and work and become a better leader, and it just continued in our income, and we it's just gone, and we've just been able to do really well, earn millions of dollars in this industry. More importantly, we've helped other people earn millions as well, and lots of other people earn thousands and tens of thousands of dollars. And it's just been an amazing ride.
Oh,
We've been extremely blessed, and that's what it's all about. So I don't know, man. I don't know. I think I probably put way too long sharing my story. You
it's
probably need my
it's all
whole
it's
Black
all
Child part of
good.
the story, but that's it.
Uh, no, I feel like I just got a master class, man. I
In
know
business,
more
at
about
least, don't undercut the competition.
I know more about roll paper now than I did before. And you gave like the quintessential framework of how to build a business and tell the story. I love it.
Yeah, no,
I
man. Thank
love
you,
it.
man. That's it.
Um,
I'm sure Mr. Play
Mr.
will do his nice and neat in 3 or 4 minutes.
Yeah, I
And
was just getting a text, Mr. Play. So look, we need to do this in like 3 minutes, sir.
South
if you'd have
Central
told me how
LA.
long I had, I would have done my best to keep it. But he just said, "Tell your story," so I didn't know how much of it you wanted to tell. But anyway, Mr. Player, he's a professional, so I'm sure he has his already. It's very distinct and beautiful and perfect. So
Floor is yours, sir.
That's my cue. Okay.
Yeah, floor is
yeah,
yours.
he did the same thing. No edification, just we're used to being edified before.
Oh man. Well, my name is Max Pillay. Actually, Max J. Pillay. My dad is Max Pillay, but that's a whole nother story for another day.
Oh
I've
man,
been involved with this in this industry now for a little over, as a matter of fact, just last month celebrated 22 years in the industry. That's kind of crazy. Started this company when I was a college student, like Mr. Peden, and I remember, hearing in this industry about a college student doing it, and I was like, "Oh, look, there's a college student who's killing it in direct sales and network marketing. We can do it." So he was one of the stories that we looked up to, and we joined because we were looking for ways to make some additional income. And just real quick I think that's important to understand is that I grew up in mostly a single parent household after the age of 12. And I grew up with a very entrepreneurial mom. Even though she worked a job, she always had an entrepreneur kind of spirit and mindset. So I remember distinctly at the age of 12 when she sat me down and she was like, I want you to go to school, get good grades, and I want you to start a business. So while most people were hearing go to school, get good grades, and get a good job, my mom was literally educating me on entrepreneurship, and I had no idea, excuse me, at the age of 12. So fast forward to college at the age of 20, 8 years later, I was sitting in a room and someone was presenting to me what today I understand as network marketing and direct sales. And I was like, everybody was kind of excited, but in my mind, I was like, this is it. This is what she was talking about. So I decided to get started, and we had a lot of success very early on. We started to make an extra $5,000 a month within our first 7th month. Had 5 figures within our first full year in a month at the age of 22, which for me at the time, I thought I was rich. When you're making 10K, you find out you're not. But we've gone on to make over $1 million basically part-time in our career here and have helped other people to do the same. And it's just been an incredible journey. We haven't worked a job now in 22 years. We get a chance to enjoy not only financial freedom, but also time freedom. And it really fuels everything that we do financially and time-wise as well. So that's the short Dun and Bradstreet. Hopefully y'all can grab something from
I told
that.
you he's gonna keep it nice and sweet and tight, man. I told you.
Yeah.
So,
So,
I love that story.
man, there's so many tidbits I can pull from this from individuals who have not been introduced to the direct selling industry, right? And then, of course, full disclosure, I am also with PPLSI, right? So my experience has been totally different, at least I believe, than what a lot of other people experience in the direct selling industry. You know, I'm listening to you two, and you two, number one, sounded like extremely enthusiastic about being involved in the direct selling industry right from the get-go. And I'll be frank, my story was different. That was not the case. Matter of fact, if I even knew this was, if I was part of a direct selling network marketing industry, I wouldn't have joined. I wouldn't have been bothered with it, right? A gentleman just came strolling into my office. He had been harassing me for several years. So look at this. I finally just looked at the product. I just looked past him. I looked at the product. You know, it's 2008. The economy's falling off the cliff. And I needed something to sell. Right. So I looked at the UPS store. I looked at McDonald's. I was going to do entrepreneurship because I'd always done entrepreneurship. I didn't know what it would look like. And so I'm looking at the product. I'm like, people need this. Right. So I didn't get caught up in all the lingo. And I want to talk about that for a moment. Right. You mentioned a word called edification. I think is something that's sometimes foreign to people when they join. I didn't know anything about that. I just knew this was a good product. People around me were helping me. So I was happy to talk well about them. I went out, I shared the product. And then one day a gentleman went to my website after I sold the membership to a number of different individuals. And he didn't tell me. He just went to my website, became an associate, became a partner. And one Friday I look up and a deposit of $1,800 hits my account. And I'm like, I didn't do anything this week. Where did that $1,800 come from? So I called the person who introduced me. I'm like, man, this company gonna pay me extra $1,800. What's it all about? He says, oh man, that's how we do it here. I was like, no, that's not good enough. I'm an entrepreneur. I need to know. So I called corporate. They informed me of what transpired. And I was like, oh. I was like, this is just like the insurance industry, just like the investment advising industry. I can build out an agency if I want to, or I can just take this to the market, right? And it's a choice, it's mine. And so I never really saw myself as a quote unquote direct seller or network marketing industry entrepreneur. I just saw myself as an entrepreneur that had partnered with a great product with the opportunity to create leverage and grow. And then it wasn't until years into it, to be transparent, that I even understood that there was a culture here, right? A kind of like a motive, a way of doing things that would accelerate your success if you learned it. And I know there's some misconceptions with some of these things, right? So you mentioned edification, right? And of course, I edify you on the front end, but in the beginning, I purposely didn't do the edification because I knew one of you were going to say something about it, right? And I think that's one of the things that really, when I saw how much of a role it played and how important it was, I think I heard a gentleman say it's like fertilizer in the soil. You got to put it in there or nothing will grow, right? I know that's a misconception that kind of throws people off about the industry, right? Of many. But if you don't mind elaborating upon them, what do you wish people knew about the industry that sometimes they get wrong, they misunderstand, they just, it throws them off, right? Throws them off their square. I know the edification piece is one of them, but there's like 2, 3 other myths that I know we could spell.
Pyramid. It's a pyramid.
Yes.
So I'll hop in here real quick. So, something you said just now, Mr. Buford, you talked about soil. It reminded me of a quote I heard recently. It's like, your rain is fertilizing somebody else's soil. And one of the concepts that I didn't understand, but I understand now that my mom was trying to instill in me when I was 12 years old, is that you either start a business or you work for somebody who started a business. There's nothing else. So you're either self-employed or you work for somebody who decided that they're going to be self-employed. And a person who's not in direct sales yet, or who is entertaining the idea of direct sales, has to understand that if the 97% approximately of Americans, let's say, work for the top 3%, there has to be some kind of gap in understanding and also outcomes that we can expect in one area versus the other. So, for example, if a person had to file their LLC, they had to make the investment, they had to get the products, they had to do all of that stuff, don't they deserve to make more money than just the person that they're hiring? Now, I know that hurts for somebody watching this for the first time, but you have to understand that you're playing in the pool because we decided to play in the pool. So if we want to get more, we have to understand that the investment that comes with it. So, the idea of are there pyramids in direct sales? Absolutely. Because when you don't have a product to sell and you're just exchanging money between individuals and hopefully one person invests who makes another person invest, then yeah, that's a legitimate pyramid. That's a Ponzi scheme. And the government will shut that down. But how can multi-level marketing or direct sales, how can it all be a pyramid when you have like high prestigious people like attorney generals who are involved in some of them? So it's just like, we just need to get more education on the differences and understand the differences and the outcomes and the stuff that we want from them. So that's the first thing that came to my head is like, you're doing a meeting sometimes, especially 20 years ago, it's like pyramid. And I'm like, you work for one.
Yeah. And
So that's my comments. Yeah.
if I jump in, I mean, maybe I was fortunate, as I said, we had mentors, as you guys, the mentors, Woody and Fran Alexander, who are literal legends in the world of prepaid legal services / Legal Shield. And we're fortunate to meet them early in our business. And quite honestly, I didn't know anything. Remember, I didn't even know this network marketing, multiple marketing concept. I didn't know what it was. The fact that I could get paid off that for others, I'm neatly associated with an insurance broker, insurance agents. So I guess I just thought, hey, this is the same concept, just done with this Legal Shield, our prepaid legal thing. I didn't know it was anything about pyramids and all that stuff. But unfortunately, the way that God worked it out is that can I give you, I gave my story, Mr. Beaver, but let me give you guys, since this is three of us, the rest of the story. So I joined on January 12th, 1993. So 32 years in a couple of weeks will be our anniversary in just a few weeks. Wow. 32 years. I cited my mom, my uncle, my aunt, my mom, my favorite uncle, Uncle Curtis, my dad's older brother, and my dad's oldest sister, my favorite aunt, Aunt Juanita. And then I signed my boss, the guy who ran that insurance agency. And I said the same thing to all of them. Hey, Mom, I ran across somebody, Uncle Curtis, Aunt Juanita. And my boss, Don, hey, Don, I ran across something I think he might. Said the same thing to all of them. And they all, besides, well, my uncle and my mom have since passed, but by my aunt and my former boss, still Legal Shield members to this day, which you guys know what that means. But here's what I'm going with that. After I signed my mom, my uncle, my aunt, and my boss, I didn't sign anybody up for like 2 months. Nothing. I mean, I got excited right out the gate, made some money. I couldn't believe it. And then I did zero. But to my sponsor, lady by the name of Evelyn Molina, to her credit, she bugged me and, hey, we're having a train on Saturday. You should come. Oh, I want you to meet Woody and Fran. We're having to meet at their house. And, back then that's when you had the double tape machine, answer machine. Remember those guys? And they had a little button to delete the message. Deep. She leave me a message. Hey, it's Evelyn. Miss Woody and Fran. Deep. Saturday train. Deep. I just kept deleting them every time. To her, she was very, very, very persistent. And finally, my wife, I think, well, she said, hey, we should go to this training and find out more about it. And she said, we know it works. We know at that point, we had actually used the service. We had moved from one house to the other, and we had paid the closing bill, our electric bill at our previous house. But I wouldn't paid it in cash. And we moved to the new house. And shortly after our new house, we had gotten this letter in the mail from the electric company saying they were going to turn our electricity off because we never paid the closing bill at our previous house, which is impossible. We said, of course we did. That's why you turned on the power at the new house. And they said, well, you have to can you give us the proof that you did it? And with all the movement and everything, I don't know. I think I lost the receipt. And so long story short, she said, why don't you call that legal thing that you have and see if they can help us? So I called the law firm. They wrote a letter on my behalf to the Southern California Edison Electric Company. And I received a voicemail message on my old answer machine from, I missed the call. And they said, Mr. Speed, this is so-and-so from the SCE, Southern California Edison. We received a letter from your attorney. We apologize for the confusion. We did find this research, we did find that you actually did pay your bill. So for all the inconvenience, we're actually going to credit your current bill, the $184 that we say you owed us. And it was just like that. So I knew that I had gotten paid, right? I knew the service worked. So I mean, and so why did I sign anybody up? I don't know. I just got back busy, got with life, went to this training, and that's where I met the couple that would ultimately become our mentors, Woody and Fran Alexander. They were doing this Saturday morning training. Fran did the first half. It was all about the service. She essentially just walked us through the brochure. And remember, all I knew was what the young lady shared with me. And she didn't really know much what she was doing. But I knew that people get access to an attorney. I knew that if you got a ticket, they fight your ticket for you. But then I got this product knowledge at this training. Like, wow, it does that, it does this, it does that. I'm like, this is great. I'm thinking of all the people that I want to share it with. And then Woody gets up and he begins to go over the compensation. And that's what I'm like, wow. And then why did I bring that up? Let me just get to the point. Oh, my point is I met my mentors early on in the business. So we decided to do everything that they told us to do because they were a couple that was living a lifestyle that we wanted. Guys, I didn't know anyone at that point in my life who didn't work, who didn't like leave their house, go to work, come home every day. The idea that you could sit at home and earn tens of thousands of dollars a month, I thought that was amazing. I mean, I don't know how you guys, I had no idea what Woody and Fran were making, but you know how you put a number on your upline. And so we thought they were making $10,000 a month. They could be making $20,000 a month, but we thought they were making anyway. We'd go stop by their house on the way home from a meeting or from an appointment, and they'd be at home working and getting paid. And so we decided to do everything they told us to do until we made more money than them. That was our commitment. So we're just going to follow them. But they taught us this. What does this have to do with pyramids and stuff? Woody taught us early on that you don't necessarily need to overcome the pyramid objection. He just objections in general. He just said, look, you could try to overcome it, but he was of the opinion that, that what's that old saying? A person of opinion still, how does it go?
Person convinced against their opinion is still of the opinion still.
Right. So that was Woody's approach to objections. Now, obviously, he would answer questions about the plan, but he wasn't a convincing business. That's just their whole philosophy. I'm not going to convince you to join. If this service doesn't make sense to you, he says, what we do, you do every day for free. So I don't need to convince you that this is not a pyramid. And so that was always how we were trained. It wasn't until later on that we began to get educated. That's when we acquired the People's Network and that hey, this is a pyramid, and this is how you overcome it. This is how you explain it. But I had great mentors who just said, don't even deal with it. We're not here to convince people to buy the plan. The membership sells itself. If people don't see the value in it, move on to the next person. And if they're not, so go ahead.
Yeah. So you said something that caught my attention. Like, I've only been with one company. I was only introduced to one company. I've only been with one company.
Right. Me too.
So you hear the stories about what goes on in other companies, right? I did a little bit of research this morning just to kind of remind myself, but I was blown away when I found out that the average person within the direct selling industry only earns $2,000 over the course of a year. I was shocked. Like, what's going on out here? Like, I earned that cumulatively in my first 2 months, 5 hours a week, not even knowing what I was doing. Right. Maybe 2.5. Yeah. And then, get an $1,800 day. Yeah. And, several months into it, still not an expert, not knowing what I'm doing, just understanding the value prop and knowing I wanted to share with people and utilizing the talent and skills tax I bring to the table.
I think that's unique because of the company that we're involved in, PPLSI or Legal Shield. Right. I mean, most network marketing companies, as I grew in the business and learned, most network marketing companies aren't set up like ours. I mean, most companies you cannot, unfortunately, you cannot earn a full-time living just marketing the product that most network marketing companies offer.
Mhm.
Um, and that's the unique distinctive of Legal Shield or PPLSI is that you can, as you know, because you did it, you can
Mhm.
earn a full-time living just marketing, just selling our service.
Mhm.
So I think the fact that you could say you did that your first month or two or first few weeks is, I mean, I did too, right? But I think it's just because most companies, you can't do that. I saw that the statement about people not earning much, the average person not earning much in the industry is because most companies aren't set up like Legal Shield or PPLSI. You've actually got to go out there and recruit and begin to build a team to earn the whatever percentage you get off of the volume that you and your team will sell or buy or however.
Mhm.
But so I don't know. I was just commenting on the fact that it's unique that you can earn a couple $1,000s your first few weeks in the business. I don't know if that's even. I would say that's probably not typical of most companies. I'm sure Mr. Play would agree as well. But again, like you, I've only been involved in one company. I would say I've been exposed to hundreds since, but this is the only company I've ever been a part of. The only company I will be a part of.
So something else that, as I was kind of along my entrepreneur journey, right? You hear a lot of people who have this attitude that just because I join a business and I get involved in the direct selling industry, money's going to rain from the sky like manna, right? So sometimes I'm very careful. I'm telling people, yeah, I know what a $10,000 day is like in this business. I know how to earn that money 5 hours a week. I'm always careful about that because people will come in. Like my favorite is I'll hear individuals say, well, I don't want to have any bosses. I don't want the responsibility of having a job. And the way it lands with me is what you're really saying is you don't want accountability. And you think you're going to come to this industry to escape bosses and accountability. I just want to lay that out there. I'd be curious to know what your thoughts are to the individual that is thinking like that. Like, I'm going to come into this industry and a couple individuals are going to say yes, and then I'm going to become a multimillionaire.
And I think that's an industry challenge, right? I mean, it is, it's not accurate, right? I mean, it's not get rich quick, but it is get rich.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't even say slow. It's just get rich. It's not get rich quick. It's not get rich slow, but it is get rich if you work it. But I think our industry has a bad rap because in selling the dream, which is what they teach us to do in this industry, right? You've got to sell people the dream. Um, it gets convoluted that hey, that the perception it may be that people aren't selling, they aren't misleading people, but people hear what they want to hear as well. But I do think our industry has developed a reputation of get rich quick because I think people say, oh, all you have to do is just do A, B, and just do this. Just add a couple drops and your bank account will explode. But I guess I think it's just an industry thing that we have to overcome. But I don't think it's obviously not accurate. I mean, it's like anything; it requires work. My mentor Woody was always say, people say I tried that, it didn't work. He just looked me in the face and said, well, go look in the mirror, you see what didn't work. And because it works if you work it. I mean, you know, does it work at the same time? No. I mean, it took me 4 years to get to the level that I think most people would love to get to in PPLSI Legal Shield, which is executive director. Some today people do that in weeks. And some people do it in a couple of weeks. I've seen it happen in 2 or 3 weeks. I've seen it happens all the time in 30 days, but it took me 4 years to do it. So it is get rich, but it's just get rich at whatever pace you're willing to work it. I'll let Mr. Blake share his thoughts.
Accountability we're talking about, huh?
Mm.
There's an old adage, it goes, and you gentlemen know it well. It's like you have to treat your business like a business.
Mhm.
But really, I heard that growing up in the industry, but I think it changed for instead of treating your business like a business, you almost have to treat your business like a job. And
Mhm.
what I mean by that is, let me give you an example. So, for example, I'm working with a young lady right now, and there's an event that I know that will benefit her in her business greatly, and it's coming up tomorrow. And she said to me, I don't think I'll be able to make it. And I said, well, what do you have going on? Because we developed a relationship. Like, what you got going on? Is it something for your family? Da da da. And then she explained what was going on. And I asked her one question. I said, well, let me ask you a question because she's a nurse. I said, if you were working on Saturday for your job, would you still go to the event? And if the answer is no, I would not have gone to the event, then okay, I can understand why you can't make the actual training that you're having for the business. But if you're saying that you would have gone to it anyway, even if you were working, then we shouldn't have the same excuse for our business. So what I mean by that is like we have to treat things with priority that we know are gonna give us the kind of lifestyle that we want. Sometimes we want things easy now, which are gonna lead to harder lives later, as opposed to developing the discipline to do the hard thing now, so we can live a life like Mr. Peden and live an extraordinary life that's easier later. So
Yeah.
you have to have the accountability and understanding that you have to go through some pain now, and there's going to be struggle. People are going to tell you no. People are going to think you're crazy, but that's in any business endeavor that you're going to do.
Right.
So why not take the hit now, knowing that you're setting up the foundation for the future? Nobody walks past a construction site and says, "Ha ha ha! Look at the hole they're putting in the ground." Nobody says that because they know that when you're putting the hole in the ground, the foundation is coming, and once the foundation comes, everything else will erect itself. So
Yeah.
that's kind of
And
how I look
happens.
at accountability.
And then they say, man, look how fast that building went up. But
Hmm.
they don't remember driving by that hole with the barriers that where you can't even see the hole for months,
Months.
maybe even a year. But then once, as you said, that foundation laid, it goes up in a matter of weeks. Sometimes that's a couple of months. But yeah, that's exactly it. And I think I agree 100% with Play is that people are going to think you're nuts. And that's my biggest belief, my 31, almost 32 years in this industry, is that people just don't believe it. Now we sell them the dream. So on the front end, the people who don't join don't believe it. And I think they don't believe it because they have a different kind of money mindset. And it could be that they've been told that the way you earn a living is you go to school, get an education, get a good job, and maybe in a good government job, and that's it. So any other way of doing that doesn't make sense to them. And then the people who do join us, because they don't see the instant success, Woody used to say, oh, he's given us. I have so many Woodyisms as you guys can imagine. People come in and and they say, well, I'm not making $10,000 a month, and I've been here for 6 months. He said, well, how long have you been? How long did it take you to make $10,000 a month in your job? And they go, I don't make $10,000 a month in a job. They go, exactly. And but I think people, because of the way that the business can grow, people think it will grow. And
Mm.
yeah, you can earn as much in a month as you earn in a year. And we should say that all the time because I just thought, wouldn't that be amazing? And it's possible, but it won't happen overnight. And it will require you to learn some skills and grow as a person. Uh, so, but yeah, I just think, and the point I was that Mr. Blake made me think about is that people are going to think you're nuts. If you do decide to go all in on this business, be prepared to have people think you're crazy and just and that's the part which is I know I'm all over the place, and that's the part that knocks most people out. The biggest killer, for lack of a better word, to new distributors or new associates in this industry is what I call which I call the rejection rocket, but it's rejection because people put so much value on the opinions of their friends and family. The moment they are rejected or someone tells them no, they quit. That to me is the biggest killer of people's dreams in this business is they believe it because people tell them no. They would much rather, that's why I think many people say, I don't want to talk to my friends and family. I want to talk to strangers. Now we understand that that's fine. You can talk to strangers, but just be prepared that it's going to be more numbers, right? Where it may be 1 in 5 of your family or friends and family will take a look. It's going to be 1 or 15 or 20 of people you don't know. But because the rejection from someone I don't know doesn't matter to me. Does that make sense? But the
Mm.
rejection from someone I know or someone I care about, whose opinion I care about, hurts more. Again, like I said, Woody used to always say this. Now I say it. Woody said, a no is a no. If someone that you're close to says no, and the stranger says no. They both said no, but why did it impact you differently, the person that you know? They both said the same thing. No, not now. I'm not interested. It's because when you're someone that you know says it, you, even though they said no, what you heard was no, dummy, no, stupid, no, why, they didn't say that, but we hear that because we're thinking they're they think I've made a decision. They think less of me because I've decided to do this. And again, the rejection is the number one killer, because when people get rejected, it's almost like we need to inoculate them first. Does that make sense? To help them, give them a shot of, hey, this is what's coming, so they can be prepared when it does happen. Because I venture to say that 9 out of 10 associates quit the business because they they say no. People, and I think people hear it all the time. They go, "Well, I talked to my friends and family, none of them were interested." Well, number one, that's not true. You didn't talk to all of your friends and family, and that's number
Hmm.
one. Number two, um, if they said no, doesn't mean that no doesn't mean no. It just means not now, or I need to know more.
So two things tactics I tend to approach people with is understanding that, look, if you're running away from accountability or being responsible for other people, you're choosing the wrong industry, right? Actually, every single one of my clients, or that's how I look at it. I look at it as members. Every single one of my clients are my boss, and I'm accountable to make sure they're happy, right? You, as a mentor to me, both of you actually as mentors to me, there's a degree of accountability. If you're going to pour into me, I have to be accountable to show up a certain type of way, right? So I've been thinking about that as I'm listening to you, right? That a lot of people don't necessarily understand that relationship. And if they did, they'd probably last a lot longer. The other thing that I'm thinking about is the impact of social bias, right? That may be part of the reason why people have a difficult time in the industry. It's not simply because of the no's, but they're looking around them. And particularly, I'm West Side Detroit. So if I drive down the block that I grew up on, there's probably, if you go 1/3 of a mile, there's probably only 5 houses standing. That's the environment I came from, right? And when you come from environments like that, and a lot of people do, there's no social evidence of people being successful as entrepreneurs, period.
Right.
Much less in this industry, right? And I've been thinking about those two things as I'm listening to you. Like, what are some of the things you do to help overcome? I firmly don't believe, at least with the company we're a part of, that it's because of the business model alone. It's just because people don't believe entrepreneurship works, period. Right? That, unless it's a t-shirt company, not knocking y'all, we're t-shirt companies. Some of y'all clients don't get upset with me if you listen to this. But unless people believe there's some of the t-shirts or gym shoes or hair or something like that, they just don't see it as plausible, right? And then the other thing I'm thinking about is people are not properly prepared for the nature of the work that we do, right? I was having a conversation with someone the other day, and I said, this business doesn't require 5-10 hours. It doesn't require 20, 30, 40 hours a week. But it does require that you work within your 5-10 hours with the same intensity,
Right,
as you would over the course of 40 hours at your job, right? You got to turn up for that 5-10 hours in order to get the results that you want. And I'm curious to know how that lands with you too.
well, Mr. Play, I went first last time.
So we're talking about social bias, and we're talking about I'm just taking the notes here, the nature of the work that we do. So I grew up in two worlds. And the reason I say two worlds is, I hear West Side of Detroit, South Central LA. Like, I grew up in a 1-bedroom apartment in Brooklyn up until I was about 12 years old. So I knew what pouring Raisin Bran in my bowl looked like. and then eating half of the bowl while I'm a kid, only to realize that it had some roach eggs and a few little baby roaches in there.
Mhm.
And I never ate Raisin Bran ever again since then, right?
Yeah,
I knew what
yeah,
it was to have, to turn the lights on when you come back home late at night, and then you just see the mice just go.
yeah,
But that was just a normal occurrence.
right.
But when I was 12 years old, we moved to the suburbs. So now we had a house, we had grass, we had people that actually didn't look all like me in a classroom. So I went from private school to public school in suburbia. So I knew what it was to have my own room, for the first time in my life. So
So we're
sometimes
rich.
I wasn't rich at all. We
No,
weren't
no,
rich.
I'm saying in your mind, like we're rich now,
We
you
in
know.
our mind, yeah. I
Yeah,
was like, we got grass. There's a park right there. This is amazing. I didn't have to walk 2 miles to go to the park. So sometimes we just need to see success, in something else or in someone else that we can identify for ourselves.
Mhm.
For me, the biggest thing for me was when I got started in this industry, I was only 20 years old. And at that time, in our particular company, the one that we share here in this company, there were no 20-year-olds that I knew of that were like slaying this company. So I was like, okay. So I would literally look, and then I remember either reading a book or something, and I literally saw Russell Peden.
Mhm.
And I read his story in the Profiles of Success, and I was like, oh, it's Russell and Carol. They were college students, even though they were about 10 years ahead of us at the time.
Mhm.
It gave us the energy and hope to say, you know what, I can do this if they can do this. And one of the things about our industry in general is that sometimes you just have to keep on showing up until the spark comes, because you have to be able to go through the no's or go through the challenges, because there's going to be a point in your career where something happens or you see something and you just say, you know what, I'm going to do it. This is the time. I remember going out to our first international conference. Went out to a conference in Oklahoma. I'm like, bruh, I'm not going to nobody's Oklahoma. It was like, what's in there? Cows and grass? I'm like, what is in Oklahoma?
Right.
Went to the conference. I saw this kid. I'll never forget his name. I know I remember his name, but let's say his name is Chris. So I saw Chris on stage, and he had achieved this high level and this high rank, and he was like 22 years old at the time. I'm 21 at the time, and I was like, if he can do it, and I was looking at him, judging him, but I was like, if he can do it, and I was looking at him, I was like, no way, God ain't no way. If Chris can do this, I'm gonna slay this. So we just immediately got that spark and that belief and that fire, and then we just immediately got after it. One of the greatest feelings, and then I'll turn it over to Mr. Peden, was that same Chris, that individual, that one that we looked up to. It was 3 years later, we had a conference that our organization hosted in, I think it was Atlanta, Georgia. He came out and he came up to me because I had one of the trainings in one of the segments and was raving about how much he learned from my segment. And I had a chance to tell him how much he inspired me. So that came full circle, which was a cool moment. So sometimes you just got to stay in until that belief comes. And then, man, once it comes and you see it and you understand it, it's game over.
And if people only knew that, right? I mean, this goes back to my point about belief. If, we can say, stick and stay, you'll get your pay. I was reading, I don't know where I read it, maybe Direct Selling News or something, that, and this industry-wide, the people who stay in the longest earn the most money. Now, what do you mean by that? But that's what they were just saying. The people who stay in the longest eventually end up earning the most money.
Mhm.
But if people only, the stuff that we say, hey, you know what? For example, I truly believe, and I'm living proof of it, and I've seen it happen in multiple organizations with my own team and others, friends of mine like you guys. You're just one person away. I always say from changing your whole freaking life, but I mean, you're one person away from an explosion. And and that's, I believe that's true. In all my heart, I believe it's true. And we say that to people, and we say that with the hope that they will grasp that idea the way that we want them to grasp it. Like, hey, I just got to keep going till I find that one. I got to keep going till I find that one. And because that's what I want them to understand is that Woody taught us that he used to say it's a numbers game that evolves into a real business. That's what he would always tell us. And again, guys, I speak so much about Woody and Fred Alexander, and I don't think maybe, well, if you were 20 years ago, then you never got to meet Woody or see Woody except on a video, right, guys? I mean, either one of you never, maybe Fran, but Woody died on Mother's Day, 1999, and of course, Fran died about 7, 8, 9 years ago. But the reason I speak so high because, guys, when I tell you, I went to that training, and they were the one on March 15th, 1993. Never forget the day. And there's this couple. They're like this great, amazing couple. And I went up to them at the end of the training and said, "I'd like to pick your brain." And what he said, "I'll never forget." He says, "What are we going to do after that 5 minutes?" That's he always used a big joker. And of course, Fran being the kind of the mom type, she said, "Well, honey, why don't you guys come by? And you come by our house. We'd love to talk. You can talk to us. We'd love to share our story with you." And I'm like, oh. And that was so that Monday. So the Monday the 17th. We go to their house after work. We go by Woody and Fran's house. They gave us their address. We went by their house. And I love to say they share this like the secret, like to open up this box. Shh, they just told us their story. That, Fran was a single mom with 6 kids when she met Woody, um, and they got married. So they're 10 years apart. Woody's 10 years, she's 10 years his senior, and he was a drywall taper, she was a bookkeeper. And they saw this. Someone presented to them in a Bob's Big Boy restaurant you know, in 1983. And she, as a single mom, she saw the value in the service, and she decided to sign up. Woody was kicking her under the table, like, "We don't have the money for that." And then he
Mm.
realized a few minutes later that, hey, you know what, we can use this service too. But I say that to say that I give to them so much credit because we literally left their house on Monday night, the 17th of March, 1993. And I got in the car and I said, "Honey, we are going to do everything that this couple tells us to do until we make more money than them." And that's exactly what we did. That's why I'm constantly referring to them in all my comments because I have all this Woody and Franisms in my brain because we owe 100% of our success in this industry, specifically in this company, to them because they just kept giving it to us and giving it to us. And we just decided to go everywhere they went. Guys, when I tell you, it became like the Woody and Fran, Russell and Carol show. That's wherever they were, we were there. If it wasn't the weekly meeting, we were just everywhere they were. One time they were going to Arizona to work with a team. They were trying to revive their team from back in the 80s because they were launching brand new in 1993. And they wanted to kind of bring back some of their old leaders. So they went to Arizona because they used to have a big team there. And they said, "Hey, we're going to Arizona this weekend to do a training." I said, "Can we go?" Carol's like, "We don't know anyone in Phoenix." I said, "But I can meet some people." And then Woody and Fred's like, "If you guys want to come," and they were taking their motor home. So we went them in their motor home. And guys, I just wanted to be around them and just catch the crumbs, just what anything. And Woody would constantly, they would always be just trained. They would just be talking to us, but they were just trained to sharing this wisdom, these philosophies. And Woody was he would quiz us on the comp plan. His philosophy was that if you understand our compensation plan, you will never quit this business. So he would just constantly drill us on the comp plan. If you're a manager, and he was but we just wanted to be around them and around them and around them. And we were, and we got all of this knowledge from. I've used to think that if I got to the point their kids, their 6 kids were jealous of us because we were spending more time with their parents than they were. And I mean, this is a fact. I mean, there is some friction between us and their kids when we'd all get together. They'd come over because they felt like we were spending more time with their parents. But why did I bring that up? Because they just shared all this stuff with us. Like it's sacrifice, you know, um, that, that you have to go through. I guess let me get back to the point. Now I'll shut up because I went way. I started chasing rabbits. I forget where the road is. This idea that, uh, look, I forgot where the road was. I was saying, what was I saying before I got to what a friend comment about? People need to. I was trying to piggyback off what Mr. Pillay was saying.
Understand the comp plan, kids,
Way before that.
social bias, before
Um,
that.
The nature of the work that we do.
I just think I just think we're so fortunate that we had the belief. We had for us, you could not tell us that this business didn't work because we had a living, breathing edification that it worked in front of us all the time. So there was never any doubt for Carol and I that it worked because our mentors, it worked for them, and they weren't anyone special. I mean, Woody was a construction worker. The reason he was a drywall taper, guy, he would mud the ceilings because he was so tall. He was like 6'6" or something like that, 6'5". And Fran was a bookkeeper. They were just this regular kind of blue collar couple. And so there was nothing amazing about them particularly, but they just worked it, and they instilled that in us, that if you will just work, it'll work. That's where I was going with it. That's the point I was making, guys. You're just one person. I was making the point that we say these things to people, to our teams and trainings and events, and with the belief that they will catch what we're trying to say. And I don't think they do, for all the reasons that we already discussed, believe, where they grew up. It's so funny, Mr. Pillay. I mean, it was about the same time, sixth grade is when we moved out of South Central into this essentially the same situation like yours. When I say a totally different environment, I believe I was the only Black student in my entire school when we moved to Temple City, to California. It was like Mayberry, man. It was great. But and then maybe all the way through middle school and high school, I think there might have been a few others, but my recollection is I was probably the only one through that whole process. But anyway, so there's just a totally different environment. It's just different. As I think you could probably attest. But guys, the point I think is that people, I don't know how to get people to I keep coming back to this word belief, that when I tell people that, because I use myself as an example, I said, Diane Klein's changed my whole freaking life. I mean, when I recruited her, and I didn't even recruit her, I recruited my friend Carl, who was he was a real estate seminar guy, and she came to one of his seminars, and he started talking about Legal Shield, and she got the plan, and then she found out she would become an associate, and then she became an associate in a state where you had to take a license and get tested to market it, and she sold a membership. And what your friend always taught us, that when you're starting to grow your business outside of your backyard, he says, wherever there's smoke, there's a fire. And your job is to go dump gas on that fire. So this lady started selling memberships in Texas. I'm in Southern California. I'd call her up and say, hey, Diane, can anybody I can help? I see you enrolled a few members. And then she says, hey, I've got this guy, my financial planner. I want him to take a look at this, and he owes me a favor. So he'll look at it because I asked him to. I said, well, great. I'd be happy to come in. And I flew to Texas to help her recruit Calvin and Yvette Collins, who had come to be other legends in Legal Shield, and went on to build one of the largest organizations in Legal Shield history. And $500,000 ring earners, and just changed. And because of that couple, they went full-time their first month in the business and went on to build a monster business. They changed her life, and they changed my life. You're just one. So Diane was mine, and Calvin was hers. Just one person away. So I don't know. I can keep repeating that, but it's just stuff like that I think, I don't know how I'm trying to say, the industry point, we say these things, but I don't think people believe them. But then there's people like us who believe it, right? And I don't know if that making any sense.
No, I mean,
I'm all the way around to get back to that point.
As I'm listening to you, I'm thinking about, as far as I'm concerned, there are universal laws that are required to be successful in any entrepreneur endeavor, right? And you just espoused on it with like so much enthusiasm. Mentorship, right? In traditional business ownership, at the end of the day, that mentorship makes the biggest difference. And you have people who will take 5-10 years to reach the pinnacle where they're headed to, where you can sit down with someone in 5 minutes and they can erase that learning curve, right? And you just talked about that. Also, you clarified something that I think people don't understand about the industry in general, and the importance of edification, right? I've been thinking about that as I'm listening to you, the edification piece, and how you just elaborated on that at length, and why it's so absolutely important in the industry. I don't think new people understand that. They see us speaking well of each other. They see us high-fiving each other. They see us praising each other's accolades and whatnot. They're like, this is weird.
Yeah.
This doesn't happen at work. This ain't happening when I come home and I'm amongst my family. This doesn't happen among my friends. What's this? And you just kind of elaborated on why those two things are so absolutely important. You know, the other thing I'm thinking about as I listen to you is people oftentimes want success, but they want to do it their way.
Yeah.
And not the way. And not the way, right? They want the success. They want success that you have, that display have. They want the success, but they don't, but they want to do it their way. And sometimes in business and entrepreneurship, there is an absolute truth. There is the way, right? In today's society where people oftentimes are just praised for having an opinion. All you gotta do is have an opinion and you're praised for it, right?
And you can get millions of followers as a result too.
Yeah, you just praise for having an opinion, right? Look, I understand inclusion. I don't want to be cruel and come off mean-spirited, but the first place trophy means something. The second place trophy means something. The third place trophy means something. That means they figured out the formula and they were more effective than everyone else. You might want to copy the right cats and figure out what they were doing. So I don't know, that's what I was thinking about as I was listening.
So that is I have life philosophies, then I'm done. I'm not even going to tell the story because this is my story that gets off the road. My two life philosophies are this: when it comes to success and just about anything. And again, I'm not sure if I got this from Woody and Fran. I would love to give them credit for it because I want to give them credit for everything they've helped us with. Is that find someone? I think it was probably Michael Klaus, actually, or Jim Rome, which is basically him. They're synonymous almost. Michael Klaus is a clone of Jim Rome. Find someone who has what you want, find out how they got it, and do what they did until. And people go, until what? Until you get it, right?
Mhm.
And I jokingly say that's how I made it through high school. I'd find someone, it was true. People in high school, that's how we can tell a story. So I wouldn't go there. I would just find where my buddies we're going to do a class project, and I want to do it with the smart kids because if I hang out with these jokers, it's not going to get done. Over here, it's going to get done. At least I can be the one that presents it. But second philosophy, everything, if you expect things to work out, they will.
Mm.
My wife is the complete opposite. She's a worry. All she does is worry. She's always thinking about, she plays out multiple different conclusions. Like, what if this, and what if this, and what if that, and what if that? I'm of the opinion that why worry about things you cannot control? So I just have always been, even when we were poor, my mom, she would cry herself to sleep at night trying to figure out how she's going to pay the bills and do all this stuff. I would rub her back. I remember being 7 or 8 years old, rubbing her back. Oh, Mom, it's going to work out. It'll work out. I promise it's going to work out. Having no idea how it's going to work out. And then I met my wife, and then I quit my job to go do full-time with PPLSI. And my wife, as you guys, obviously we grew up from two different backgrounds, obviously, and two different cultures. But when I say we grew up two different backgrounds, I mentioned earlier that my mom made sure that we didn't need anything. I grew up not needing. I grew up wanting a lot, but not needing, because my mom was sure that we had everything we needed. My wife, on the other hand, grew up not wanting. Yeah, there's a big difference.
Mhm.
So when I said, hey, I'm going to quit my job and go full time, it was because we went to a big event, to Mr. Play's point. Our very first convention on April 24th, 1993. Got to meet Mr. Stonecipher, got to meet Wilbur Smith, Dave Savula, all these amazing guys. Came back home, beat the plane home on Sunday, quit my job on Monday, and went full time. And she said, okay, because because I said I've been making $1,000 just doing it sometime part time, anytime. What if I did it all the time? And I went full time, and I realized there's a lot of time in the day, and I wasn't doing it full time all the time, and the money wasn't coming in enough to take care of our bills. And she was like, she didn't know what it was like to not be able to pay your bills because she had never had that. I mean, that was our reality growing up. But I tell her the same thing. It's going to work out. But how? She'd say, I said, I don't know, but it's going to work out. But how? But how? But how? I don't know. It's going to work out. I'm an eternal optimist. That's the one thing, the gift that God gave me. I just believe it'll all work out if you expect it to. Those are my two philosophies: that find someone who's got what you want, do what they did, how they got there, do what they did and then just realize that everything will work out if you expect it.
So something else I've been thinking about, and your time's valuable, and I want to be respectful of the word coming to the finish line now. But there are two questions that are foremost on my mind. I think individuals who are looking at the industry and what we're doing may have. A lot of people begin their entrepreneurship journey once again, particularly in this industry. And it's like they have this belief that the BS.com stops, that life doesn't continue to life, right? That hardships, disappointments, all kind of stuff isn't going to happen, right? And I'm just a firm believer that like money is not all things, but it's an answer to a lot of things, right? But for those individuals who might get knocked out the box, not because they don't love the business or the industry, or they're not having a good experience in terms of earning income, and they don't have a good relationship with their fellow compadres. For those individuals who misconstrue that, once again, they believe just because they joined that all of a sudden their life issues are going to disappear. You know, what are some of the strategies that you've employed when life has lifed? You know, how has this business been transformative for you when you've been in a dark spot or in a place that just maybe weren't so good?
So two things come to mind. I call it, so I heard a story of another business partner, and in that particular story, I think it was like 15 years ago, he had made $40,000 in a month. And what he was explaining what was happening, how he made $40,000 in a month. You know, he's part of network marketing, and he had an organization that had over, I think, something like 25,000 people. And in that particular month, less than 800 actually did anything out of 25,000 people. So I was like, wait a minute. You have a team that has 25,000 active associates, and only 800 made at least one sale. And he made 40,000, it's like 39,000 and change. So immediately, number one, I was blown away. The entire audience was blown away. But I wrote down in my notes that day, and he didn't say this, but I wrote it down. I said, okay, more zeros equals more zeros.
That is a bar. Oh my goodness.
So I was like, okay, so the more people that tell you no, then by default, the more people will tell you yes. And this is what we're not taught in employeeship 101, right? But in business owner, like no matter what the business is, you have to, number one, you have to invest more zeros than everybody else. You have to take more no's than everybody else. So I was like, okay, more zeros equals more zeros. So once that kind of unlocked in my brain, I was like, okay, so I understand that people are going to tell me no. I might as well get as many no's as fast as possible. So that was the first thing. And the second thing, a personal quote that I live by is that you have to make a deposit in your present so that way you can make a withdrawal in your future. And most people think about making deposits of money, but what I'm talking about in our industry is that you have to look at it as you're making deposits of time. So you're taking time away from things that you want to do personally that you have to do in your business, but eventually that you'll be able to take those withdrawals later and live the kind of lifestyle like some of these people on this particular platform are speaking of. So one thing that comes to mind, you talk about hardships and you talk about life will happen, is that in 2017, my mother was diagnosed with cervical cancer. So this was 2017. Now, me and my mom, we didn't have a great relationship as an adult between me going to college all the way up until about 37 years old. My mom, even though she was the most important person outside of my wife in my life, but she's a Haitian immigrant. She was the oldest of five. Um, and she didn't grow up poor in Haiti, you know, but, you know, she migrated to the United States and basically had to start her life from scratch. And she built up to where she was a doctor, had multiple practices in 3 states. And, you know, she owned her own practice for 20 years. So that was my mom. So she was ultra successful. Out of everybody in the family, she was the most successful person. Right. So being her son and daughter, of course, my sister as well, she was very critical. So if you weren't living up to 100% of your potential, she's going to let you know about it. And that kind of left a gap because I got started in this particular business around that time. And every year around my birthday, which is actually coming up in a couple of weeks, she would have that talk. All right, so what else are you going to be doing? All right, I know you got that thing, but what else are you going to be doing? And I always took it as a criticism. And we were succeeding at a high level, but she always saw beyond the surface. She always saw potential. So she got sick in 2017. She needed a caregiver, and she needed round-the-clock care for about, those period of 2.5 years. And her husband, my stepfather, God bless him, he couldn't walk away from that traditional business because she owned a traditional business. Even though she was ultra successful, it required all of her time in order to make money. So he couldn't walk away to be a caregiver. We had other family members who just had life and kids and, other stuff, other responsibilities. They couldn't do it. So here I am, not close to my mom. And it's almost like God knocking on my door and saying, all right, you got to step up. And I'm scared because I don't spend that much time with my mom. So for the period of 2.5 years, I got a chance to spend more time in 2.5 years with my mom until she passed away than I did in 20 years combined.
Mhm.
My life stopped for 2.5 years, but our income grew every single year, hand over fist, every single year. So we spent the least amount of time doing business, but we had our most extraordinary years all the way through the pandemic, right when she passed away at the beginning. So the reason I say that is, again, because you have to make deposits in your present to make withdrawals in your future. So something that somebody asked me, I often ask people is, how long could you survive if your paycheck suddenly stopped from your job? For some people,
Mhm.
it's a week, 2 weeks. For some people, it's a month. For some people, it's 6 months. If you're that lucky, if you're very fortunate, it's a year. But if your income suddenly stops, what can you do? You need to build something that will continue to pay you and your family and your legacy, whether you work or not. So that's kind of our philosophy now and understanding. And that goes to the last thing I'll say, Mr. Buford, is to the point of mentorship, is that mentors can see things that you cannot see.
Mhm.
I say something like, I don't know how the quote goes. It's like, only those that see the invisible can do the impossible. I think that's what it is. And sometimes you can't see the invisible because you don't know it's possible, but a mentor can see, like, almost like, y'all remember, uh, what is that series called? Thundercats? Like when
Yeah.
Lionel looked through the sword, it's like sight beyond sight. That's what a mentor does. They give you sight beyond your own sight. And if you trust in them in the process, they can shave literally years off of your life. So um, that's what I got to say about that.
Man, and how do I top that? The first thing you said made me think, I don't have it anymore, but guys, when we were starting off, everything there was Legal Shield, I'm not a huge fan of our previous CEO, but I know you guys know who I'm talking about. And I will give him credit. The one thing that he did do, because I personally believe he was the worst thing to happen to our company in 50 years. But the one thing I will give him credit for is he brought our technology into the 21st century. Legal Shield was always, there was so, PPLSI has always been so risk adverse that they were very slow to the technology piece. They were all because, and I get it because they were the leader and the pioneer of the industry that they started. There were no laws to regulate a company like ours. We in some states considered us an insurance product. Some states did not. Some states were required
Mhm.
the departments of insurance. Some states required a license. Some states did not. And because we're these squirrely entrepreneurs, well, they love the product and they love our compensation. They'll get people get really creative, and so they've been shut. They've had to. It's gotten shut down in many states. This is Woody and Fran telling me stories from before, um, because some associate went out and did something or said something that the state didn't like. And so I think that's why they were always so risk adverse, is that they were afraid of anything that could potentially, because the internet was just like the wild, wild west. And if we let people do what they want on the internet, then they can get us shut down completely in the whole country. And I think that's what they're worried about. But that had nothing to do with the point I want to make. I have this, like my MacBook Air box here. And I want to share this with you because back in those days, everything was on paper. We would get paid twice a week on Mondays and Fridays. They would cut us a check. Basically, and I get it because it was easier for them. All the business that came in that week, they processed it and cut a check on Monday. Um, and anything that came in, they put anyway. So it was Wednesdays and Fridays. But anyway, we got paid twice a week. And with your check that came in the mail was a printout of everything that happened. And they would break it down by every commission level, associate, and what the commission was, which is another way to learn a comp plan too. So your first little statement, it's just one piece of paper folded, tri-fold it with your check. But as your team and more memberships get, they're trying to take this printout and fold it, trifold it, and stick it in a letter envelope. They can't. So then it starts coming in a letter size envelope, and then it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. So we started getting. You could tell this. You knew you were growing because your printout would get bigger and bigger and bigger, and then at some point you could order if you wanted to. Um, you could order your genealogy, and I get to the point. I'm gonna make. Don't let me forget the genealogy point, because at one point I ordered our genealogy. It was 8-point type, and it was this thick.
Remember that.
Yeah, I mean, so I want to make, and it was up. It was printed. It was just printed, right? And to the point that I remember having like 20,000 people on that, because it gives a total at the end, and just thinking it's just if everyone just did one, but that's not the reality. And I love this more zeros equals more zeros, man. If I record a video, I'll go on Facebook Live and mention that. I'm certainly going to give you credit, Mr. Pillay, but just no, I'm going to run with that. That's a book. That's a podcast. That's a course. More zeros equals more zeros. I love that. If I get nothing out of this time with you guys today, I got that. Woody, I used to go to Woody. Woody and Fran lived. To come home, we'd have to go by Woody and Fran's house. The neighborhood they lived in was just the way that the roads and the highways worked. They were on the way to our house. So, and I'm full time. So I'd always stop by their house because they were encouraging, and I could ask questions and bounce ideas. And so I'd always stop by their house, and it could have been, I could have had a horrible day. And I'd go to Woody, and I have all these, oh man, I talked to 5 people. I had 4 appointments. 3 of them didn't show. The one guy that showed, blah, 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 blah. And then Woody would say, well, what are you sitting here talking to me for? I already got a membership, right? I mean, he would say that. But Fran, she was the mom type, well, honey, well, that's the way it is. And you guys, but but Woody would just, and then don't ever complain to him that oh, then I remember having like a team of 10 people, and I only had like one person doing anything. Then I had a team of like 100, and this is just over the years. And then and I had like 20 people doing something. But I'd always go, man, look at all these people that aren't doing anything. That's the point I was trying to make. I'd go to Woody and go, man, I have 100 people, because I could see the print. I'm like, I have 100 people, but only 10 of them did something. And Woody would, every time he'd say, I got a whole lot more people not doing nothing than you got. That's what he'd say. That's makes me think of that. His point was, if you want to be successful, you got to go have a whole lot of people not doing something to have some people who are doing something. And that's what he would say. And it basically was saying more zeros equals more zeros. But his point is that I have a lot more people not working than you got. And if you want to make a lot of money, go find a whole bunch of people not working. And that sounds crazy, but if we understand it, but the average associate, like, what does he mean? Go find a bunch of people that aren't working, because that means you're going to have a lot of people who are working, not as many as who aren't working. But anyway, so that I want to share that. I don't know how much impact that had, but I just thought that was really important. I think going back to kind of playing on what Mr. Play was saying earlier, I also think that personal development plays a role in our business. This idea that we are, some people say that our industry is a personal development program with a compensation plan attached to it. Now, Woody and Fran Alexander never talked to us about personal development. I'm not even sure they could spell personal development, but Woody they were a living edification. Woody was a huge Zig Ziglar fan. In fact, he spent $4,000 and bought the Zig Ziglar speaking course, and he would listen to it over and over and over again, spaced repetition. And that's how he became such an amazing speaker. Mr. Stone's said he was the best legal trainer in legal shield history. He's the best speaker in legal shield history. But it's because he just worked hard at it. But so we watched them do personal development, but they never said, hey, you guys need to do your 10 pages a day, your 30 minutes of good audio. They never talked to us about it. They just did it, and we watched them do it. They had dozens and dozens of tapes in their motorhome and in their spare bedroom that we would crash at some nights, because we get to their house after the briefing and we too tired to drive home. We'd crash in their spare bedroom, and there were tapes and audios all over the place. So we saw it, but they never talked to us about it. But I think that it's so important that in order to grow, you have to grow. And I say that now as a leader, but I think that's the other piece, that it's not even have to be like super part of the system, but I know it's part of our team core, but I just think that's so important to the success of people, because as you were talking about, I think the question was about how do you deal with the adversities. And I think you deal with the adversities by growing, by working harder on yourself than you do on the business. And you know, I don't have it here in this slide, but it's in the box. Michael Jordan, his book, For the Love of the Game. It's actually, I don't know if it's 3 little mini books in a sleeve. It looks like one book. And one of the things that he says in the book is that he works harder during practice than he does during the game. I'm telling my son this. My son just started playing basketball for JJV for our school. And I'm trying to him to understand that how important it is just to practice the fundamentals. All he wants to do is shoot baskets. I said, son, you got to dribble the ball. I know how to dribble the ball. I said, you're going to dribble the ball more than you're going to shoot the ball. So I need you to get good at dribbling with both hands. You're only good with your left hand, but anyway. But Michael Jordan said he worked harder doing practice than he did during the game. He said because it makes the game easy. Because he said what he notices that, and this is at the professional level, he said even at the professional level, these guys who are earning all this money, they still only give like 80% doing practice, because then they give 100% in the game. But they, you know, they won't run as hard, pass as hard doing practice. But he practiced like he was playing the game, and he said these guys would get mad at him and upset with him because he's going hard and charging on them and all this stuff, and they give him crap about it, and he just didn't care. He's like, look, I'm here to win. And I think I share that story because I think it talks about it's good at personal development lesson, that if you'll decide to work harder on yourself than you do in the business will become easy for you. Because personal development growing personally will help you understand why you need to do the 2 a day every day, why you're going to get some no's, which is why you kind of people every day. So I just wanted to throw the personal development piece. I think that's an ingredient that's vitally important to the success of anyone in our industry. And I think it's why it's part of our 10 core commitments as well.
I love it. So I'll ask one last question, and I'll let you gentlemen go back to your $1 billion generating ways. Oh my gosh, man, there's so much I can pull out of this interview. You all dropped something like incredible gems, platinum gems. If you could leave someone who's listening to this conversation with one piece of advice, one thing they could do that would increase the likelihood of their success.
Don't quit. That's easy. No stories, no going on. Don't quit. Don't quit. Don't be here a year from now. That's it. Just decide. That's it.
I love it.
That's it. I can't think of anything else. I mean, that was the best advice. I think that, you know, just don't quit. Obviously, if you don't quit, you got to do something while you're not quitting, but just don't quit.
All right.
I would definitely say, I'm going to get to that point too. I agree with that point significantly. It's like, if you're not in direct sales yet, then don't spend like your entire life trying to analyze every direct sales company, because if you don't know what to do, then find something that you think that you might be passionate about and just go at it. And then until you find something where, you know, there's conflict in our industry where it's like, you know, oh yeah, find a company that, you know, you can make money at, or versus find a company that you love the service. And then people go back and forth with that. I think in our industry, but specifically in our company, we're blessed where we have the best of both worlds. But I would find a product that you like, but also that can actually, more importantly, that solves a problem that many people have and that they're willing to pay for the solution. So you have to find, if you're not in direct sales, you need to find something, a problem that people have, and a company that offers a solution, and then just get good at offering the solution as best as you can. The number 2 thing is that you have to learn is that you have to lean on a mentor. Like you have to have somebody who gives you that sight beyond sight, like I mentioned. And I was only a 20-year-old kid. And I think that because I was a college student at that time, I was used to being told what to do. So I didn't have the filters and barriers that a 30-year-old, 40-year-old, or 50-year-old would have had at 2002, because I didn't go through life to be like, go through job and have the frustrations and all that. I just knew person told me what to do at school and I did it and I succeeded. And the person told me what to do in business, I did it and I succeeded.
Interesting.
So I would definitely find a mentor that you can lean on and follow. And then the last thing is to the point that Mr. Peden made, is like, if you want to learn how to fly, you got to be okay with learning how to fall.
Mm.
So you have to understand that there's a learning curve. And yeah, you can make some incredible money. Like Mr. Peden said, he didn't reach one of the highest levels in our industry, in our company, until 4 years later. But that same level, I was able to accomplish in 7 months. Now, was it because I was better than Mr. Peden? No, it's because that I was able to take from experiences like Mr. Peden's, his story, and so many others, and say, you know what? I don't have to make the same mistake. If I want to be smart, I learn from my own mistakes. But if I want to be wise, I'll also learn from the mistakes of other people. So I was able to take those mistakes and say, you know what? No filter. I'm not going to do that. He told me it's not going to work. Even when a mentor tells you something that doesn't make sense, that's the hardest thing for an adult. When a mentor tells you something against your own, like, nah, this doesn't make sense why I'm going to do it. Like, why do I need to do a three-way call? No, I'm not going to do it. Like, when a mentor tells you something and you do something against your normal understanding of it, and then you succeed, that's when everything will change for you. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
presuppositions. That's what presuppositions. We have Tony Giri has become he's a mentor, a friend and a mentor. And I don't know if you remember Mr. Beaver, when we went to see his results center, one of his books, you guys can't see it because of the green screen. It's called Advice Matters.
Mm.
It says extraordinary results come from extraordinary coaches and mentors. It's just a book that he co-authored with a guy named Jay Rogers, talking about the importance of having a mentor. When I said don't quit, and I think I need to really clarify that. When I said that, I do mean the best advice for someone to have success in the industry is, and I think I agree with Mr. Pillay, find a company that, one of the things I hate about the industry, I dislike, I don't like to use the word hate, is that we're the only industry where that's in competition with us. Burger King and McDonald's don't fight. You don't hear Burger King franchisees going, "Oh, McDonald's sucks," or McDonald's doesn't talk about Chick-fil-A, and Chick-fil-A doesn't talk about, but we're the only industry where we're like competing with, when we talk bad about the other companies in our industry. Another thing that I dislike about our industry that I think needs to change. I think we need to elevate that part of our industry as well. But let me just make my point about the don't quit. I think when I say don't quit, I don't mean just don't quit and be here a year from now. I mean, don't quit. Don't quit prospecting. Don't quit showing up to the events. Don't quit plugging into your team calls. Don't quit following up. Don't quit all of the activities that are required. Just decide I'm not going to quit. I'm going to stick and stay until it works. And as Mr. Self always says, you got to get buy-in, because you can't say, Mr. P told me to stick and stay till I get my pay. And your spouse is going, well, I need you to produce some results. And because you can't expect them to keep going along with that unless you produce. But I just believe if you'll have that attitude, then you will, and you just keep showing up, something's bound to happen. You're gonna get that light bulb moment. It's gonna happen for you in 4 years, and like it did for us, or it's gonna happen in 7 weeks, and then you're gonna go to a big event, and that's where you're gonna get it. But it can't happen for you. It wouldn't have happened for us if we had quit our second year, right? It wouldn't have happened for Mr. Play if he had quit after 7 weeks. And so many other stories that we could talk about. People who they went to a big event and that was it. But it's because they decided to not quit and just be here for the next event, be here for the next meeting, be here for the next call, the next follow-up. It took me 5 years of follow-up to recruit the executive director couple that would ultimately took us to platinum for the first time. But 5 years of follow-up with that guy, 5 years with that guy, 5 years calling every 3 months, just checking in with them. Because Woody and Fran taught us, you follow up with your prospects. If they don't tell you no or go to what, then you have to every 3 months until they die or until they sign up. That's what you'd say. As long as they don't tell you to go jump off a bridge, you follow up with them every 3 months until they die or until they sign up. You just create a system that will allow you to do that. To me, it was a little 3x5 index card box with a larger box. But you just create a system that will allow you to automatically follow up with people every 3 months until they die or do they sign up. because and that's just, again, just do not quit. Don't quit doing that. Don't quit following up, because if I hadn't, that couple would have never, he'd never come on board. He would have never signed up and never went to ED, wouldn't went platinum that time. So just don't quit. Man, that's another train. I'm gonna do a live about that as well. Don't
Man, I could take literally every 5-10 minutes that you all been talking and literally create like just invaluable content and advice that would be like life-changing for individuals. I love it. But like I said, I want to be respectful of your time. We have definitely ran up more than I anticipated, but it was just all so invaluable. And I thank you once again. I mean, I can bring you back, and we only cover maybe 2/5 of what
I'm sorry, I talked too much, bro.
No, not at all. I mean,
More zeros. I love it.
you are, I listen to you, Mr. Peden, and you exemplify what the success model looks like.
Thanks.
Right? You exemplify it, right? You hear people talk about sticking and staying in activity, the enthusiasm and excitement and the belief, like it resonates with you. You vibrate. So if someone says no to you, they ain't for it anyway, because you vibrate in such a way. I mean, you actually answer one of the questions. Well, what are the difficulties you anticipate in the future? Where if you're vibrating, you're not going to have too many difficulties, right? So, no, I learned so much just watching you and listening to the enthusiasm and confidence that you speak with. So I'm thankful for that. And of course, Mr. Blay, you crush it all day, every day. I am going to continue to lie, cheat, and steal from your content. And as Mr. Peters,
at least I'm giving you credit, bro. At least I'm not going to steal.
I wasn't done. I'm gonna give him credit for a week or so, but after that,
yeah,
I'll be putting posts with my information on there.
Let me go ahead and make some videos too, Mr. Peters.
Put it out there first. I'll let you put it out there first. Then I can just share your video and comment on it. Yeah, that's good.
So I thank you too again for your time. This has been like invaluable.
Oh, this is great. It's refreshing.
Yes. Hey,